The mind loves small stories, but statistics loves large samples. This disagreement causes trouble. In this episode, we begin part 2 of thinking, fast and slow, heuristics and biases. Kahneman covers the law of small numbers, anchoring, availability, emotion, and risk. These chapters show how people make estimates when they do not have enough information, which is almost always. Chapter 10 is about the law of small numbers. People expect small samples to behave like large samples. If a small hospital and a large hospital record birth statistics, many people underestimate how much more variable the small hospital's numbers will be. We expect representativeness. We forget noise. This bias affects research, business, investing, sports, education, and everyday life. A few successes can look like a trend. A few failures can look like a character flaw. A small study can feel persuasive. A short streak can feel meaningful. Kahneman's warning is that small samples produce extreme results more often than intuition expects. The lesson is not that small samples are useless. It is that they are noisy. System 1 is not built to feel sample size properly. It sees a pattern and wants an explanation. System 2 must bring the statistical discipline. How much evidence is this, really? Chapter 11 explores anchors. An anchor is an initial number or value that influences later estimates, even when it is arbitrary. If people first see a high number, their later estimate tends to shift upward. If they first see a low number, it shifts downward. The anchor does not need to be informative. It only needs to be present. Anchoring is disturbing because it affects people who know about it. Judges, negotiators, shoppers, and professionals can all be influenced. A list price, an opening offer, a random number, or a suggested quantity can pull judgment. System may second adjust away from the anchor, but often not enough. There are two mechanisms. Sometimes people deliberately adjust from starting point and stop too soon. Other times, System 1 primes information consistent with the anchor. If the anchor is high, the mind searches for reasons a high answer might be plausible. Once again, coherence matters. Chapter 12 covers availability. The availability heuristic estimates frequency or probability by the ease with which examples come to mind. If instances are vivid, recent, emotional, or heavily covered, they feel common. If examples are hard to retrieve, the event feels rare. Availability is often useful. Common events usually do come to mind more easily, but vividness distorts. A dramatic story can outweigh dull statistics. A recent accident can make a risk feel larger. A memorable success can make a strategy feel more reliable than it is. Kahneman also explains that the experience of retrieval matters. If you're asked to list many examples of your own assertiveness and struggle to reach the number, you may conclude you're less assertive, even though you just produced examples. The ease or difficulty of thinking becomes evidence. Chapter 13 connects availability, emotion, and risk. People often judge risk not by calculation, but by feeling. If an activity feels frightening, people judge it as more risky and less beneficial. If it feels attractive, they judge it as less risky and more beneficial. This is the effect heuristic. This creates public risk perception problems. Some dangers feel vivid and morally charged, while others are statistically larger but emotionally dull. Experts and the public may disagree not only because one side has more data, but because emotional salience shapes what risk means. Kahneman discusses the availability cascade, where media attention, public concern, and political response amplify one another. A risk becomes more available, which increases fear, which creates more coverage, which makes the risk even more available. The social world can become an echo chamber for System 1. These chapters are central because they show that judgment errors are not random. They have direction. We overread small samples. We drift toward anchors. We estimate by memory ease. We turn feeling into probability. These are not rare defects. They are normal operations of a mind built for speed. The practical response is to slow down at the right moments. Ask about sample size. Identify the anchor. Seek base rates. Ask whether vividness is doing too much work. Separate how frightening something feels from how likely it is. These are System 2 interventions, and they are not automatic. The law of small numbers is especially dangerous because it often hides inside intelligence. Educated people know that evidence matters, but they may still treat a small amount of evidence as if it were stronger than it is. A tiny sample can produce a clean-looking pattern. A few customer complaints can feel like a trend. A few good months can feel like proof of skill. A few bad outcomes can feel like proof that a person, strategy, or department is broken. Kahneman's point is that randomness is not emotionally persuasive. Randomness does not provide a satisfying explanation. If a small school has unusually high test scores one year, the mind wants a cause: great leadership, teaching culture, parental involvement, discipline, inspiration. Some of those may matter, but small units are more likely to produce extreme results simply because they are small. The statistical explanation is boring, and boring explanations are at a disadvantage in a mind built for stories. Anchoring has a similar humility lesson. People like to believe they evaluate numbers from the inside out based on value. But anchors show that estimates are pulled by starting points. A first offer in negotiation is not merely information. It shapes the mental range. A suggested donation amount, list price, salary expectation, forecast, or target can become a gravitational object. Even when we adjust, we often adjust too little. That makes anchoring a practical tool and a practical hazard. If you're negotiating, the first number matters. If you are estimating a project, the first deadline matters. If a team hears an early revenue forecast, later discussion may orbit it. The obvious response is not simply to shout, ignore the anchor. Anchors are sticky. A better response is to generate independent estimates before sharing numbers. Use reference classes and ask what number would be plausible if the anchor had never been mentioned. Availability is equally practical. The mind treats memory retrieval as evidence. If examples come easily, the category feels common. This is why media environments matter. If a type of crime, disaster, scandal, or success story is constantly visible, it becomes mentally available. It may be genuinely important, or it may simply be vivid. The feeling of availability does not tell you which. Availability also affects personal life. If you can easily remember your partner's recent mistakes, you may judge the relationship more negatively than the full pattern deserves. If you can easily remember your own failures, you may underestimate your competence. If you can easily remember one person's success, you may overestimate the probability of repeating it. Memory ease becomes a silent statistic, and it is often a bad statistic. The effect heuristic adds another layer. We do not only remember examples. We feel them. When a technology, investment, person, or policy carries positive effect, its benefits feel high and its risks feel low. When it carries negative effect, its risks feel high and its benefits feel low. This is efficient because emotion summarizes experience, but it can flatten reality. Many things have both high benefits and high risks. Many things we dislike still have value. Many things we like still have danger. Kahneman's risk chapters are also a warning against confusing moral intensity with probability. A risk can be morally serious and statistically rare. Another risk can be statistically large and emotionally dull. Good policy needs both moral attention and probability discipline. If public conversation is driven entirely by availability and effect, it can chase vivid dangers while neglecting quieter, larger ones. For everyday decision-making, these chapters recommend a few habits. When you hear a striking example, ask how common it is. When you see an extreme result, ask about sample size. When you encounter a number early, ask whether it is anchoring the conversation. When something feels scary or attractive, ask for the probability separately from the feeling. This is not because feelings are useless. It is because feelings are not measurements. The broader point is that estimates are constructed. We do not open an inner spreadsheet and read off objective probabilities. We reach for examples, adjust from anchors, respond to emotion, and impose patterns on fragments. Kahneman wants us to treat that process with respect and suspicion at the same time. Thank you for listening. Next, we continue heuristics and biases with representativeness. Tom W. Linda, causal stories, regression to the mean, and the trap of intuitive prediction. Final close. The mind does not merely estimate the world. It estimates the world through whatever is easiest to see, easiest to remember, and easiest to feel.